Good morning.
Good morning. Who's that peeking out from behind?
Will you say hi?
Hi, sweetie pie. How are you? I miss
Say
you
hi
so
to
much. She's getting
Jess.
so big.
Oh my gosh, she really is. Are
You
you getting so big? Have you been running around?
Oh, I gotta pay attention to what the heck I am doing, y'all.
Yeah, Mama hurt her finger yesterday, right? And so I was just taking care of the nail.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Oh no. Do you want to see something cool before we start? Thing, you want to see something cool? Do you like puppy dogs?
Oh, we do like puppy dogs, don't we?
Oh, oh, Zing.
Oh,
Want to say hi to Archie?
look at that puppy dog. Archie, you said?
This is Archie, yes.
Oh my gosh, I love
His
it.
name, according to me and nobody else in my family, is Archibald McFuzzypants.
I
Teenagers
love
say
it.
that's dumb and embarrassing.
Just wait, when they're like 35, they're going to be like, Mom, do you remember? That was the best.
Exactly.
Oh
So I
my
think we're
gosh.
going to be a relatively small group today, Kristen. So whenever you want to get started.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. I think maybe I'll ask right off the top. You want to play? Okay. Hang on one second. I'm curious, just for those of you who are here today, did anybody participate in Giving Tuesday, or should we take that off of the sort of conversation agenda?
Northampton neighbors didn't.
Okay. I'm not going to have
We
you
did.
sit on the counter, sweetie.
We did at Riverside as well. We didn't really, didn't do a big push, but
Yeah.
it was still, I was kind of mixed about doing it, just because of the success of what we're doing for fundraising on our own, and it's just so global, So,
Yeah.
but I was happy with the outcome for the minimal work that I did. So, yeah, we actually had a fair amount of support from our staff at Riverside, which was really nice to see.
Oh, yeah. That is really nice.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe then just use that as like an entree into sort of talking about the things that you are doing in terms of fundraising and how Giving Tuesday layered in? I mean, you sort of just entered into, or you shared that you have sort of your own plan going on. And so maybe you could just talk a little bit about that. And then each of us, since it is a small group, could just take a couple of minutes to chat about the things that we're doing in terms of fundraising.
Happy to. Sure. Do you want me to start now, or should we wait? Or
Sure, yeah. Why don't you start now? Yeah.
Okay.
And then Molly,
Okay.
I did notice that it did seem as though you maybe did some fundraising Giving Tuesday. So maybe we can just all sort of round robin here and talk about our own stories and share. How does that sound?
Awesome.
Yeah, so Susan, if you want to share maybe a little bit about what you all are working on, and we can just trade stories and experiences.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, so I shared what, minimal on the Giving Tuesday, but I was still pleased with the outcome. I have been doing direct outreach to a lot of our major donors, first starting with a lot of phone calls. I probably started, 4 to 6 weeks ago, just reaching out with wellness calls to see how a lot of our donors are faring, and how their family is and things of that sort, and then asking permission to stay in touch and to share with them some stories that we may have throughout the weeks. And everybody was very open to keeping lines of conversation going. And so that has been quite successful. We've had a lot of support, a lot of very generous donations that have come in. And then I did follow up maybe a couple weeks ago with a constant contact email that was a little bit more, it wasn't a heavy ask, but it was just sharing some more information about some of the programs and the businesses that we have at Riverside and what they're doing right now. And certainly sharing about our direct support professionals and the challenges that they aren't considered essential workers, although they're really doing the work of frontliners in some cases in some of our residential settings. So I feel it's been important to share that information with our supporters, and I've extended it on. I'm breaking that whole story up now and sharing it on Facebook and other social media platforms. And then we have something called Mission Moments that are still occurring now, since we are certainly staying and getting in touch remotely with all of the clients that we serve. So sharing those mission moments has always been part of my task that I've always felt has been very successful to share with our supporters. So
I like that model a lot. I've used it in other organizations. I think it's really engaging regardless of like what stakeholder you are, to be able to really share those stories that don't oftentimes bubble up. Having it be built into the process, I think, can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Whoa, what are you doing? Molly, do you want to jump in next? And I'm not sure if you had a question earlier, if you wanted to share with us what you were doing on Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, we didn't do very much on Giving Tuesday because we had Library Giving Day was on April 23rd, and that was super close to Giving Tuesday. We started doing Library Giving Day when Valley Gives Day went away because we depended on that so much for fundraising. And we went back and forth for a long time about whether or not we were going to do Library Giving Day this year, because it felt like perhaps a bad time to be asking for money, but we softened our approach a lot and like halved our goal that we had, and we actually exceeded our goal by $2,000, and it was like super successful. So but I think we did it in a way that didn't make anybody feel like we did it in a really like, if you can give, that's great. If you can't, we totally understand. Let us know what we can do for you. So our message felt good once we got around to it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm curious of everyone here if, how do I say this? To me, in the recurrence of these calls, have been sensing a theme of hesitation and tentativeness around asking. And I'm wondering if anyone has had any experiences where they feel like they've stepped over a line or really kind of like bumped into someone around making an ask and had a negative experience, or if we're all just sort of generally being cautious, and potentially that's even like too safe of a place to be in some ways. So there's sort of two questions that I'm asking there. One is like, has anyone gone too far? And is anyone feeling like maybe we're overly cautious in a time that each of your nonprofits are in some ways always providing critical support to the community, and potentially we're too concerned about asking?
That might be Northampton Neighbors. I don't know, Naomi, chime in if you have anything different to say, but I mean, just personally, when I think that our organization does critical work. But when I put that next to food security, I mean, it's really, so I'm tentative. I have to say, I really am. And Molly, I love the way, I have to say, I was surprised the library went ahead and, and it made that ask, but I think it was done really beautifully. And maybe we can use yours, as more of a model. It's interesting because we're putting together right now a year-end report. It's not an annual report. It's going to be something that kind of bridges. The next one we do will be an annual report. But just before this, I was privy to all of our donors and to many of the amounts that they give. And I feel like not enough people are donating to Northampton Neighbors, yet benefiting from the services. And there are people who, I have to be honest, they really could be giving more. It was pretty striking to me. So having just seen that, I mean, within the last half hour, I'm going, oh my gosh, what is our next step going to be? Because I think it's not just, how are we going to do this during, in this time, but just even if this weren't going on, what should we be doing? What Naomi and I did do, those we called every one of our not our personal donors, but our business donors, we did call. And then the next step, we were waiting for this report to come out, because the next step would be to send this report, the year-end report, along with a cover letter. And I don't know, Naomi, if you got any response, but 3 of my people did respond, personally back to me and thank me for the update. But Susan, I just love to hear what you did and how successful it was. It's giving me hope that maybe we can do something. I feel like we're still babies at this. We haven't been doing this for very long. So I just want to say up front how much I appreciate this roundtable. I mean, it's something going from a 3rd grade classroom to fundraising. This is all really new. So.
Well, I think, don't we all gain something regardless of our experience too? I mean, I think that's what I feel is one of the centered value pieces of our having these conversations from each other, and the convening aspect of it feels really engaging in a lot of ways. And I think to your point, but when we talked about this, I think it may have been last time, I do believe that telling is really critical in terms of the way we with our communities. It sounds like that's a lot of Susan was sort of centering her communications around. People remember and have very tangible levels of understanding as to the work that you're doing. And so when then you're asking for support, it's top of mind as opposed to a really hard, sharp ask.
And then I actually find that sharing that in between the asks, sometimes you can be the difference between a soft ask and the real ask. It does make the if you will, to be blunt, the blow a little easier. And people are welcoming the sharing of the information.
Yeah. Sorry, I think we were getting overwhelmed by the 2-year-old.
I agree with everything Marcia said, but also I think that as I listen to everybody and learn from everybody, which I think we are, because we are babes in the woods at development, but there's a fair amount of overlap between the various groups. So, first, COVID is probably most frightening for the group we serve, which is the elderly, who are terrified of going outside, many of them, as they should be, at least, well, to some extent. But also there's some that don't have enough food. There are a lot who feel isolated. There are many who are disabled. And the elderly are a group who are often invisible not only as individuals, but as a group. People forget and feel competitive with them about resources. So I don't want to understate how we're all making phone calls to people on our long list of members. And, you know, I've had a lot of conversations where people are getting seriously depressed and feel isolated and frightened. And I don't want to diminish the importance of this community at the same time as we really don't want to compete with groups that are more dependent in some ways on donations, because we have a fair number of volunteers.
I wonder, this is just a question, not a statement. It is a thought coming through my mind right now. We're so, because we are kind people, right? We're very worried about the competitive nature of development. Is our request for our organization valid at this moment in comparison with those of our colleagues around the table? But I also, my further thought on that is, are we reaching out to the same donor group? Are the people who will be donors to Northampton Neighbors the same donors that would donate to Riverside? And when we're, you know, when we are suffering with that feeling of self-doubt around our own development efforts, is that a concept to think about as well? That maybe it's all just different people, and the story that Susan is going to tell is going to be a different story that Marcia is going to tell, that Molly is going to tell, and that we're going to be touching different people, and the heartstring or the story that will be compelling to person A who donates to Northampton Neighbors, they may never have donated to Riverside. So, you know, should we like be reminding each other in these kinds of situations to just go for it? Ask in the nicest way you possibly can, knowing that there are, you know, people are, we're all, we had a marketing and a sales related roundtable last week. So not focused on the not-for-profit community, but on the for-profit community side. And salespeople and marketing people are all asking the same questions, right? Like, how do I ask when I don't know who, you know, who, what the problems are of the person that I'm talking to, and but you still have to ask. You ask in the nicest way you possibly can.
The thing that I would add to that is, if you don't ask, then potentially people don't know that you have a need. And along with that, and this is a perspective with some professional backing, we all have agency, and we all can choose how we participate in things. And speaking for myself, like, I have lots of, for example, I work in the political realm, so the amount of political asks that I receive is somewhat astronomical and slightly irritating. And I'm not irritated that they're asking, I just have like hundreds of emails that come, and I don't know why I got on like the list of the governor of Virginia, for example. I'm making that up, but I just make a choice, and I make a choice as to the story that's compelling to me and the amount that I feel like I can give. And I do find myself pulled in when someone's telling me a story about the work that they're doing. And even if I can only give $10, I feel good about giving $10. But if you don't ask, you might not come across my radar, especially now with just so much information coming at us on any given day. Swansea, I noticed that you... Yeah, go ahead, Jake. No, go ahead.
Are you sure? I'm happy to let Vincent go.
Yeah, go.
No, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I think, well, as far as what Jessica was saying about the competing, I agree that I don't feel like we're, especially for from the farm standpoint, not competing with other nonprofits, typical base. I'm curious, so for us, because schools were canceled, all of our programs were canceled. So we've essentially shut down. And so this may not be the case for the other nonprofits here, but I was curious, you know, when you're not doing the thing that people typically donate to support, now we're kind of, we've shifted gears and have asked our donors to support us so that when we can go back to work again, that we're ready to do so. And so I'm curious how others have kind of dealt with that, if they have been forced to kind of shift what they're typically asking their donors to support. And then on the Giving Tuesday thing, we participated very minimally. We just sent out one email on Giving Tuesday with our regular newsletter. And we were surprised. Our big donors have like really stepped up in generous ways that we never saw coming. And then on the flip side, we don't get like any small donations anymore, which I guess should not be surprising, but it kind of tells us like people who used to give us $5, $10, $20, that's not happening anymore. But our big donors are really showing up right now. So I was curious if people are seeing that too.
Jake, do you feel like you're reaching your small donors in any way?
I don't, not like a direct call. We have stepped up to make sure that we're sending our like monthly email. We have like a monthly e-newsletter. And so we've been sending that out, giving people updates. Our small donors also typically are like family. So their kids come to camp and then they love our camp and they give us an extra $10 or $20. So all of those folks are still staying tuned to see if we have camp. We haven't made a decision yet. So maybe not as directly to our small donors, but through our monthly e-news. It's been it so far.
Jake, where are you from?
Oh, sorry. I'm from Redgate Farm in Ashfield. And we host overnight farm programs. And so we work with a ton of schools in Springfield. I feel so like I worry about those students the most because I just imagine them stuck at home, like they need more than ever green space. And then we work with schools out in Boston, New York, and then the local Franklin County area as well. So yeah, I definitely feel, and we've been really nervous to ask people because not that we're necessarily like a secondary good, but like when it comes to frontline supporting, we get that. And we're not directly feeding people or, helping medical workers. So we've been really hesitant to ask people for money because we understand like why would you support something where like we don't have kids on the farm right now? We're just trying to keep the lights on.
Well, we are kind of in a similar position. I'm Swansea from Northampton Parent Center. And, we had to close up everything. We are on-site based drop-in center for families with young children, like Kristen's daughter. And we had, we like the schools are just going to be closed as long as they are, and we'll see what happens with early childhood too. But so I struggled at first with wanting to ask people because it seemed like immediately when we shut, we had to cancel our biggest event-based fundraiser of the year, which was a huge blow to us. And it put in question whether we were going to, make it till we could all get together in person. And so we put out a plea and had, and that was an initial plea and that was pretty successful. But again, we didn't want to push it. I kind of was worried that, okay, all of our people who have given, who can give, have given. But we were advised to have presents for Giving Tuesday. And so we did, like you, have a minimal, one email and put it out on social media. And we didn't have any matching grants or anything. But, we had, relative success. I was surprised at a lot of, we did have some small donors still giving. And so what I realized, a lot of people who do give have said, we want you to be here when things go back to normal. And like Redgate, we're not on the front lines. We have switched to online programming as much as possible with giving virtual circle times and story times and parent education things. So we are saying, you know, support us in doing this. We have a lot of our people want us to still be there when everything eventually, when we're able to gather in person. But so, you know, I think that for fundraising, it is important to keep making the asks. And in each ask, we're compassionate to those who can't give. You know, we're phrasing it like, we know not everybody can. But even in my friend group, I have some friends who are completely out of their jobs, like making nothing. And then I have others who are still making money and now are not spending on anything. So it's like, there are people who do have resources and people who don't. And yeah. Oh, and we also got the PPP loan last week too, finally. So that is really helpful to us, just as far as lasting at least through to the fall. You know, I'm worried about ongoing, just we're not going to be able to have in-person events. And so our whole fundraising scene for the long haul, I think, is really going to have to change. That's what I'm kind of, you know, worried about over the next few years.
We are trying to pull together a panel discussion. Ideally, it would be with some folks from our not-for-profit community who have had online events and have, you know, hopefully been successful with them, because we want that for them. But their knowledge would be invaluable to all of us, no matter what, if they come with some experience. And we've also reached out to several folks who have who are from the for-profit community and are willing to share some of their expertise. The chamber itself is looking at creating an annual meeting that will have a virtual component, or maybe will be virtual. We're figuring that out right now. So if you have any recommendations of folks that you know that might be willing to be a part of this panel discussion, please let me know. I'm trying to pull that together because I know it's something that for all of us is so much a part of the way that not only we fundraise, but that we educate and create community within our organizations. So, you know, those events serve multiple purposes. So let me know, and we are absolutely working on that.
That's great. Thank you, Jess. I think the thing that I want to reflect is that we all are engaging because we want to live in a vibrant community, and we want to reflect and support all of the aspects of what looks like for us here. And I think, you know, I consistently and constantly have conversations with people, regardless of their industry, around how special this community is and how really centered it is around the work that we all do. And so when I think about engaging now and looking into the future, I think that's a critical aspect of it, is how do we want our community to be woven together and continually, because I think losses during times like this can be really challenging. And, you know, it's when the possibility of central elements of our community potentially go away, it can be really challenging during times that are times of struggle. And so how do we maintain who we are and how we are? It's really hard to keep a train of thought with a 2-year-old crying. So thank you for listening to my mobile.
Your level of multitasking is top notch.
Thank you. I appreciate your kindness.
I'd like to share. I think one thing I'd like to share is you know, we're talking about the our donors and, you know, the fear of asking, and I think what I've tried to do, my mindset has been that our donor base for each of us really hasn't changed. They've been there for us through thick and thin in many ways, certainly nothing like this by any means. And I've tried to keep that mind. That's the one thing, is that our donor base really, really hasn't changed. And they are expecting to hear from us. And I'll bet that we do have some that will support many of us right now on in this circle. And they know what and how they want to support us. So if each of us don't ask, I think that's where the if there has to be, and I'm not calling it a mistake, not a mistake, that's the biggest mistake that we can really have right now, is not asking. I mean, I've been, as much as I've been overwhelmed with watching webinars, some of them have been incredibly informative as to the fact of that the giving right now is close to 200% greater than it is in normal times. It is I had to read that 3 times to believe that, but any of my donors have been giving much more than I would even expect to ask. It's just, and we all certainly know this right now, we're in crisis, but it's next year that's, I know, one of our concerns at Riverside. I mean, this year there is that peak that's happening, but I hate to bring it up, but it is a reality.
It's to bring up in order to be strategic and make thoughtful decisions now in terms of, I think, all of the ways that we engage. And I think the thing that I would also add to that as well is, and this goes interlocking between what you were just sharing, but also the aspects around community. We have so many strong relationships within this community, and I think engaging them in the asking is also really critical. Like, I have my own personal feelings around Giving Tuesday. It's not my favorite way of support, and I also recognize that it's an incredibly powerful time. And this year I noticed myself really thinking about, like, who do I personally want to be supporting in leadership, and who do I know within an organization that is doing really important work, regardless of whether it's front lines or not. And I can say that just engaging in this community and our roundtables here, my getting to know many of you through this process formed some of that giving. And so, I certainly walked away feeling like, gosh, I wish I could give more. But I definitely find myself, and I'm sure that there are many others within our community are feeling that way, that we, someone who's running an organization, or we know someone who's working in an organization, and we feel committed to their cause, and working within those relationships to keep us all sustained feels important and critical.
I have 2 questions for the group.
Yeah.
Well, so one is about, I was curious for the other nonprofits so like the Community Foundation of Western Mass made an announcement that they were suspending their mission grants program. And so I was wondering, that hit us a little hard. And I was wondering if that also was unexpected for others, and if they're hearing that from other foundations that they've applied to, that they contacted and said, sorry, we're suspending this program because we're focusing on other things, or kind of advice of like working around that. And then my second question is to Vince and Jess, are there ways in which you see that we can partner up with businesses to support them? Understanding that they're going through just as hard times as us, if maybe not more. And how, in that brainstorming process, like what we could possibly do, maybe as we get through phase 1 or phase 2 of reopening, or, to partner together to make people aware of their business, our organization. Just your thoughts on that.
First of all, I love that idea. Love it, love it, love it. That's like, that speaks to my soul and everything that gets me totally jazzed up. I think that there are plenty of ways to do that in like a grassroots kind of way. If there are businesses that you have partnered with in the past or have been supporters, especially if they're the kinds of businesses that, you know, can't work right now, but are pivoting in interesting or novel ways, use your social media to expand their presence, and vice versa. There are, I think, many ways for the for-profit community and the not-for-profit community to partner right now for the benefit of like 2 months from now or 6 months from now. You know, can you go on to their Google page or their Facebook page and give them an amazing review, right? And then reach out to them and say, you know, would you consider doing the same for us? There are many ways of connecting that don't involve you know, a big spend right now. And so much that we see, Vince and I had a meeting yesterday with Russ Piotr, who used to be the executive director of WGBY and is a brilliant human being. And we were talking about the need for connection right now. And that relationship building opportunity of looking to your folks that have supported your organization in the past and saying, I'd like to help you out. I'd like to share the work that you're doing to help them reopen, connect with a different audience. I think that could be so meaningful. And in the long run for your organizations could be a place where, you know, that relationship and connection had developed. And, you know, when they're able, they'll be donors again, that kind of thing. You know, certainly you're reaching out to a different audience and your audience wants to support you. And if they can also support some small businesses at the same time, it's part of that circle that our community so relies on. Do you have any other ideas on that, Vince? I know it's 12:06 too.
Yeah, Jake, I was going to just make a suggestion. Now is your opportunity to like decide who do you want to partner with or work with. Who do you want to solicit from, or who do you want to, you know, have part of your wheelhouse and your, you know, program, and make a wish list of the top 3 to 5 for-profit businesses and go after them. I think about the Chamber's mission, and we can help you do a little matchmaking to see where it may make the most sense, where there are some synergies, and make sure that there's a good fit for you and them. So I would say just start with your wish list of folks you'd like to work with or doors you've been trying to penetrate and haven't been able to get through, and leverage the Chamber to help you get to the right people.
And I'm the person to do, like, when you have that wish list, reach out to me. And that's my whole thing. I love that. Bring it on.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Jake. That's great.
I wish that Jessie Cooley and Katie Lipsmeyer were here, because I do feel like with the Daffodil Run that they were fairly intentional in terms of highlighting the businesses that may or may not still be open right now, but have traditionally supported the Daffodil Run. And it was in varying ways based upon the organization. Sweetheart, I totally hear you, okay? I want to give you a hug too. Can I finish what I'm saying? Thank you. I think they did a really tremendous job in terms of still highlighting the organizations that they that time support with sponsorships and that type of thing that sort of funneled back to don't forget about them when we are able to sort of resume some sort of business sphere.
I really appreciate that question, because I know a theme in many conversations that I have with development folks from the not-for-profit. Swancia wants to talk. Yes.
Oh, you're
just saying like, yeah, that we talk about that partnership.
Providing childcare.
And I just love this idea of, the for-profit community needs all of our support right now. And this is an opportunity for, for us to support them as well. So it's really a lovely concept. And certainly you have audiences that they may not have. So there's a lot of positive that could come from that relationship. Kristen is super busy and it is 12:09. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Like I said, I am working on a panel discussion about moving in-person events to online. That will likely be our next meeting. I don't think I'll be able to get all the people together by next Tuesday. I think it will be 2 Tuesdays. So not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after. That's my hope for gathering that resource. We will be communicating about that. I would encourage you to like the GNCC private group, which is called GNCC Community, to make sure that you're updated about chamber events. And I would also encourage you, tomorrow we are having something called a coffee break, or a Connect Here coffee break at 10:30. We will be, the entire purpose is networking. So if you have an interest in making contacts and forging relationships with folks in the business community, sign up. It's going to be friendly and fun and not a huge investment of time, kind of like an Arrive at 5, but online, and maybe a little less intimidating because you're not walking into a room of 100 people. So join us. We would love to see you there. And thank you all so much for today. Kristen, do you have any final wrap-up thoughts?
No, I think that was, I just appreciate being able to convene and connect with all of you. And I feel like it's you who bring the experience and expertise to us, and we're just sort of holding the space. So I want to thank you for that. And thanks for being patient with our current circumstances.
No problem. It was wonderful to see you all. Please be safe and be well. Take good care. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.